All right, there we are. Hey, what's up? Gene returns to the podcast,
Hey,
healthy,
Gene, welcome back.
strong, and powerful. What's up, man?
That's right. Friend of the show, Gene Park, is finally back after a long
Welcome back.
hiatus, and I've recovered. I was in the hyperbolic chamber
Mm-hmm.
and defeated the cell that is cancer.
There you go.
And
Congrats again, man.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks, man.
seriously, that is awesome. And no one had to toss a senzu bean out to at any point either. So, yeah, that is awesome, and happy to have you. There is much ado
This
this
is a good
week.
week.
There's a
It's a
lot.
good week to have you.
There's a lot going on, and not that we necessarily have to take it, but we have been given permission to disrespect our guests' time. So we're gonna do
None of our time is valuable. None of it.
we're gonna do our best to cover the many things that have happened over the last 7 days, I suppose. I mean, so
Where the fuck do we want to start? on
okay,
this?
well, if I have there's shit that's basically like about to spill over and be gone from my brain if I don't start
Yeah, do it. Go.
going.
Go.
So
Run.
I will start with the fact that I've now beaten the Mass Effect trilogy.
You beat Marauder Shields. Congratulations.
Was that's
final enemy of Mass Effect.
that's
Yeah.
that's the trying to stop, they're trying to save you from the ending bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the final grunt that you shoot in that game is just some generic thug, and it's his shields, and it's just Marauder Shields. and
Right.
it's just-
This was
Right.
from the era of when boss battles were bad. You
Dude,
can't
but
des-
when are we gonna be done with boss battles, bro?
Oh my
they're
god.
Trash.
Oh my god,
can't
right,
design
right.
them, you know.
Can't
so that's why
boss
we got
battles
Marauder
be over?
Shields.
Yeah, right. Okay, I see. Yeah, there was a lot of going on where people were just yelling things, and me and Reggie are just like, dude, we're not even gonna begin to try to understand the 18 memes that are going off right now because
You're
people.
decades late.
No, not only that, but like people are teleporting back in time to when they were 13, and their
Yeah.
eyes are rolling back in their head, and they're not even conscious of what they're typing anymore. They're living in the past in this moment, screaming things, and we're like, yeah, sure, man, probably a funny thing, but we're just going for what's in front of us.
It was a time.
So I'm really glad that the way the way I did it is we talked about it in the moment, and then the next day I came back. I digested a little bit. I came back. I gave a couple more thoughts, and now I'm going to come back on this again. But the distance, of course, means it's not as sharp already because so much shit has happened since then. So I'm glad I got it out right away because I wouldn't have been able to do so articulately if there was too much time passed. But in the end, first off, fucking huge thanks to everybody who's been watching and enjoying that. And a lot of people have basically said that they fucking love this insane run more than anything else, and that it's been, a completely fresh way to watch this classic trilogy. And that's the goal I have anytime we go back to something classic. So I'm really happy that ended up working out, despite the anxieties in the middle and the nervousness about how to proceed and the switchovers and such. In the end, it worked out amazingly, and I gave a million kudos before, but I'll triple down and give kudos again to Azuna for really helping us out with the
Dead Asuna. Hey,
right,
good
just
job.
amazingly.
Incredible job.
She did so well at like basically serving the role of like, okay, the person that would be in the room that knows what's coming. This is kind of the prep, and we can make those amazing moments happen, like red versus blue at the Citadel and things like that.
Now that it's over, I have to say, a long time ago, when you decided to do your mixing and match with the characters, everyone was sitting around going, yeah, there's something we want to warn you about, which is the red and blue situation, but we don't know how to fucking tell you because
Right.
it's like the biggest spoiler ever.
Right.
But hey, look at that. Dad Asuna just jury rigged a solution
Yeah.
that just worked.
And the energy like was the best possible outcome. That's I love that more than what the original would have been there. So that's incredible. Everyone got a fun experience out of seeing that type of thing for the first time. Plus the fact that there's two of us there as well. is like there's different energy to like how we both play the characters and yada yada. I'm bickering with him and the choices and so on, and it's chaotic energy the whole way through, so it's a lot of fun. Great run through that. Now, because there's so much to go into, I guess I'm not going to dwell too long. I'll just get to like the bullet points. But the way things played out as you hit that ending, what strikes me the most is that, okay, before you even get to the room, there's one...
By the way, we're going to spoil the ending of Mass Effect 3.
We're going to spoil the ending of Mass Effect 3 for anybody who doesn't want to hear about that, and by extension, the Mass Effect universe, I suppose, to some degree. Okay, so one, shout-outs to Anderson for having a clean, awesome, like, unsullied run through that series. You know, Keith David, top to bottom, is just a great character, and that finale you get with him.
Keith David's a great character. Yeah, you're right.
Where's the lie? And then when you get and like that full thing you get through the game with him, that it's unstated, but it's quite clear that like this is a paternal figure you have. It's not Hackett who's military with you. It's he's reaching out, he's on a personal level, and you know, he's talking about his own family troubles, and you kind of have that moment where he's like, "You did good, son," and you're just like, yeah. That's awesome," you know. So that was airtight, top to bottom. Contrasting with that, you get Timmy Boy, who I'm like, he's got to show his face at some point, and all I really want from Tim is through. And I'm not even going to ask for the justification of where your infinite nonsense plot money came from. You know, I just want to hear, like, through your indoctrinated self, either what you thought your idea was and why it would work, or you break because you kind of realize, shit, I'm indoctrinated, right? Like, it never made sense. Either the recognition that it never made sense, or you know, an actual verbal boss battle. And in what we ended up getting is this insane thing where he goes, "No, you don't understand. We got to do it this way for humanity." And then you go, "But what if you're wrong?" And he goes, "Oh, God!" And then one follow-up question shatters his mind. You know,
I think that Elusive Man's like, you know, because it's supposed to be like, what are you gonna do? And they're supposed to push you and pull you toward. Like, Elusive Man's pitch is awful. It is so uncompelling. It is so unconvincing. The guy is crackling with fucking mind controlled cyborg energy, and you're like, he doesn't make any good points at all, and it's totally uncompelling.
And like the last couple of moments before that are basically just like him going, "No, we have to burn those orphanages because the smoke will be useful for creating a mess." Like, it's the level of evil has gone beyond anything you can possibly comprehend, and you're waiting for that, like, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you can look me in the eye and just say, okay, here's where we started and it kind of made sense here, but then I got indoctrinated and now it's kind of fucked up. But we never even get that. So it's all a wash. The whole thing feels pointless, right? And I guess I just can conclude it. It's like, well, if your muscle is represented by Kai Lang, then your brains are not going to be that compelling or impressive to begin with.
I was about to say, what was your impression of Kai Lang?
Fucking God,
Emily.
Just get it. I mean, it's kind of wild that even for something that old, but still, it's not like from 30 years ago, right? It's from like a little over 10. So it's wild that they kind of still thought, nah, man, this cool ninja guy with the edge is going to just do it. And it's like, I don't know.
He's a Naruto OC.
There's nothing. There's just less than nothing happening. And then you even get to kill him in the most nothing, edgy kind of way of like ignore and then turn and stab. And really, I'm like, even that's too much for it. I would have preferred it because what happened is, and I think what I was told is that a mod was basically responsible for, you can get the broken sword afterwards as like a trophy. You know?
Yeah, that's I didn't have that.
And that's like, I'm like, don't acknowledge him that much. Don't give him that much respect. Some people just need to get John Wick 1. Do you know what I mean?
The ending of Kai Lang in my heart for Shepard is like Tally saying, "Wow, you finally killed Kai Lang," and Shepard goes, "Who? Who are you? What?"
Yeah, just that's it. Like you really just some people that think they're high up on the villain list deserve nothing more than pop and we're out. There's no acknowledging you're just another fucker. It's done, right? So anyway,
timeless cringe. Timeless cringe.
Timeless.
It feels like the opposite of when you got to the end of Final Fantasy VI and you were like, "Wow, after all these years, this is still good." And then you get to Kai Lang, and it's like, "Wow, after all these years,
it's still bad."
Cringe.
It's not even like ironic cringe anymore. It's just so sincere and just sad.
Yeah, and you can't even like pretend. Like it's not even a thing where you're like, "Oh, but his design is so cool."
It's like, no,
it's top to bottom fucking falling apart. You know. So anyway, you get that shit, and so we move into the finale room, and it's like, oh my god, right off the bat, fucking it all leads back to Vancouver Child. Here at the end of all things, a Vancouver Child awaits you on the other side, and it's just I'm like I'm so fucking over the mystical all-knowing child trope. I'm like even back then I'm like we get it. God is a little innocent child.
Form because of Shepard's grief,
and like of course that whole bit of like the one that you can't stop thinking about because PTSD. And I've already said this already that I don't outright dismiss the idea of Shepard being haunted by one random kid if you take that and have Shepard confused by why, and if it's like, oh, because trauma takes on unpredictable forms and you never know how that's going to express itself in your day-to-day life, and they played with that idea, then you'd have a valid reason. But that's not what they play it for. They just
Shepard,
play.
You killed millions of Batarians.
They play it. They play it for the completely nonsense mystical child coming through, all knowing, yada yada, whatever. And it wasn't until I think like 2 steps into that conversation that I didn't realize that we were being presented with a list, and it was just a like part 1, part 2, part 3 to the thing. I thought it was still a conversation going, and at some point there would be a like, all right, which one of these options are you going to go with? But it's actually process of elimination. So I put this out. We talked about it in the moment, and then like I said, I came back to it the next day and had a few thoughts. In the moment, the first thing I'll say is there's what I thought was cool and was interesting about this entire ending sequence, because there are some things that are worthy of calling attention to. Certainly the feeling of the final moments with your squad, the buildup of getting to say like, I'm not going to say goodbye, but you know what this is, right, to everybody.
Feels very desperate.
Yeah, and it's just it's a real like back against the wall struggle. Those stakes are what they are. Those were played out really well. And the little Reaperitos that are zapping you on the ground at that point are, it's doing the thing. But when you kind of have that moment where the first proposition, right, the red control ending, the red destroy ending, right, gets proposed, not knowing what necessarily that was, the idea of it immediately struck me as fascinating and a really interesting point, because the way I took that, and what I think was cool about that, is the idea that, all right, Shepard, here you are. You can fix the problem and make the Reapers go away. But you know how throughout the whole series we've been talking about how robots are really alive and respecting them? Do you actually believe that, though? Or deep down, does it just feel nice to kind of say that, but you really think that life is organic and the robots are kind of on another tier that doesn't really fully matter? Because if you have to sacrifice them to save the rest of us, would you do it? That's an interesting question.
I think that's a really kind way to phrase that question. Because I think that the way that was designed was the destroy was a hit button solve problem. Like the problem is overtly solved, like it's gone. However, there needs to be some downside at all. At which point they go, well, people like the Geth, right? Okay, it'll also take out the Geth. So there's your downside.
and Edie and anyone dependent on synthetics
On
to
anything,
live, right?
really, yeah.
And then the count will be catastrophic. However, organics will survive. Now, again,
like, here's a really good question, right? This is really important, and it's one of the issues that people have with the ending right away. Do the Quarians die as a result of you hitting that button?
that's a really good question.
Totally dependent
Now,
on cybernetic technology.
I was not under the impression that like machines as a whole stop existing. It's more like anything AI or to that advanced level falls apart, right? But perhaps VIs would continue to work. Perhaps anything mechanical still works, machines and computers and such, but anything that's approaching that level of sophistication would fall apart, right? Even within that casualty count, it's not that they took this angle on it, but the implication that you as a player has to take a moment and actually question whether or not you believe the bullshit or whether or not you're real about it. Like, okay, if you really think this life, because we all can think of aliens as valuable life that is just like us in a different way, but the idea of the robot is a harder one to reach to. Like, you have to take a leap of faith that its intentions are pure enough and that its thoughts are sophisticated enough that mirror our own stupid bullshit to be...
Legion's cool.
Of course, but like in this, but you have to take that leap to go like, and we think your life is worth protecting and validating to the same degree as everything else, right? And there's obviously complications when you get into the like, well, what if it can carbon copy itself forever? And we get into the weirdness of, all the soul and so on. But the thesis statement, at least from the jump, that has the Geth activate from the moment where they ask whether this unit has a soul or not, is this is a nice potential counterpoint in the form of this proposition. Right. You then move on to the blue control ending.
Oh, you want to go control over, okay.
Right? Well, that's the order it's presented in. And
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And it's just like, you can become a god and take control of the situation if you think that none of these outcomes are going to be good enough, and then you will be the one to decide. Of course, you have to become something less than human. You have to become something more than human. You've got to just become the god of all of the Reapers, And with that, it's interesting how they go, all right, so let's put the Paragon color on the Paragon solution.
I think that's a really good. That's the one thing I love about the ending is like destroy is red, so it feels renegade, but it's but no, that's kind of the Paragon.
But hold on, right? And then blue is like, no, we'll fix it. I'll be the right one. I'll decide. I know what's good. And then it's like, oh, we're blue fash all the way. We're going hard down that line. And then you don't get the context initially, right? So it cuts off at the fucking planet, and you get blue balled. But when you get the extra cutscene, the extra little slideshow, you see that moment of like, and your renegade Shepard or whatever the case is will be like, and I will be the one to decide, and those who have wronged me will face my army. And it's like, okay, and here we go. I, the Lord thy God, I'm a jealous God, visiting the iniquities of the father unto the children. Like, you're straight up marching down a path of like, and you are the one who will determine what peace means in the future. Got it. Perfect. This outcome, I'm sure, is even better than the one we were about to face, right?
I think blue is like dramatically hurt by the fact that it's the option that Tim wanted you to pick, and Tim's
I'm going to get there. So then you move on to the synthesis, and the synthesis is like, actually, guys, this is probably the least amount of destruction, and all you really have to do is hit the button, and now we're all on the same side. And as you may have heard, Reggie hit the button and pulled the trigger and went full green, and I'm like, well, I guess that's it, boys. Racism is defeated. We have now all become one, and everybody gets the pass, right? Like, and it just hard cuts to the filter where everyone is a fucking robot, and we're all the same now. We all, everyone one together. We get along, no problems whatsoever, and all it took was the complete and utter removal of any free will or bodily autonomy. And all you had to do was completely and utterly change what life means in the universe forever and the concept of freedom.
I think that the green synthesis ending does not go into in-game or in the text enough that you are violating the bodily autonomy of literally every thinking creature that currently exists.
And you have to face that as a preferable outcome to the casualty count that would otherwise occur, right? So that's kind of where you're looking at it. Like, all right.
And trees and plants. I fucking forgot.
Yeah. All plants, all life. It cuts to like leaves that are cyberneticized. And you just have to go, all right, but hey, less things died and everything got along. And then the husks that were like, are going, oh, you're a friend now. Hey.
Yeah, personalities now, yeah.
Yeah, and Huskhead sitting on your desk over there is now an actual person going,
He's your coworker now, yeah.
with no body, right? Wild. So, okay, these are your propositions. Now, what I initially kind of walked away from with these three, besides being tired of the fucking child delivery system trope that we got there, is the part where, sorry. And as an aside, by the way, the hilariousness of, as Reggie walked up to the reactor to jump in for the green ending, the fact that he put the gun up and down, I was like, wait a minute, you can aim that? They let you? Can you? Yes. And immediately he didn't do it. He hit the threshold, so he threw the gun down. I'm like, oh, I bet you there was something there. And everyone's like, yeah, you can shoot the child.
You can shoot the child for ending 4.
Right. Which gets put in after the fact, and the result of that being a cynical ass, fuck you, you don't want to play our game? Well, fine then. Take your ball and go home, bitch. That is hilarious, right? You don't really get an ending out of that because you choose to not play, and the game says, fine, you don't get to play. But when it comes to those three now, I initially walked out of that going, this bothers me because it feels cynical. And I'm like, it feels like a cynical result to a very complicated, large, rolling 3-part story with a million dominoes that's hard to juggle. And I understand how difficult it is to get to this point. But these endings are just like, they're all like, yeah, I know when you have to say that, look, it's going to hurt no matter what, but you got to choose what kind of pain. But the idea of literally going, this game is all about choices, pick which one of these, and they're all kind of... not just fucked up in what they propose to you, but targeted fucked up, because the cynicism I kind of realized after I came back to it and thought, like, this bothers me, but I don't know how to fix it. And then I came back and said, okay, wait, hold on. I think I have an idea of how to fix it. The reason why the cynicism bothers me is because you spend so much of your time in that game trying to provide an example of hope, right? As Shepard, and like people like Edie are asking you about that, going, why do you go against odds that are clearly impossible? And you're kind of just like, because we believe in each other, and because sometimes you just got to do what's right, and even if it means sacrificing yourself, you know,
all that Kingdom Hearts shit,
all that, exactly, right? All that, like, basically Shimon and fucking Kamina talking to the anti-spirals about like the odds of bullshit, the human spirit, yada yada. So when it comes down to it, the game is like, no, actually, you know how you've spent the entire time going like that, and you've spent the entire time rallying against the likes of people like fucking Tim and people like fucking Saren? Well, it turns out those guys are right, except they're just not here yet. But because it's you can do their bad idea good.
You can make the hard call.
So the synthesis ending is like, oh, Saren was right, actually. We should
Saren's ending.
We should just join with them and give up all freedom and live in a harmony of nothing, because really this is just join the hive mind, Borg it up, right? But this is twisting that Borg presentation to be like, what if it was bright, green, and happy, and we had a baby in our hands, and it was a little baby Borg?
The synthesis ending is not presented as such, and I don't even think they might have even considered as such when they made it. But when you pick synthesis, you are admitting that you played 3 games only to go along with the original villain's plan.
And you talk him down so hard initially that he fucking blows his brains out after realizing the indoctrination. But now you're like, hold on a minute. Maybe we can scoop it back in, because maybe I need to actually, you were right, you know? And then one step before that is the fucking Control version of things, when you just fucking walked past Tim's body on the ground because he wanted control. And he's
like, no, you can't.
Right? Furthermore, I saw the art of like the potential Tim monster boss fight where he gets big dumb, stupid arms and shit. And it's like,
the
oh,
Joker in Arkham Asylum or something.
It was exactly. It was Bane. It was a Bane Tim. And the description being like, oh, he uses his intellect to fight you. Meanwhile, he's fucking jacked out like crazy. It's like the dumbest shit ever. But Tim's ending is the fucking blue. And you're like, that is so cynical because he gave you no interesting proposition of that ending. And then now you're faced with the same choice and you go, yeah, you know what? I got a bigger dick. I can swing it wider and I can fucking fix the things that Tim was going to not do. And I won't make the same mistakes because I'm special, which is literally the history of Fash. You know, we're going to do it different this time, though.
There's a lot of little things over the course of the series that were like kind of little, I wouldn't even call them flaws. They're just like goofy little things. But when you get to the ending, they start to show real problems. The Control ending is victim to the fact that they were never able to decide what Renegade actually fucking is. Renegade in Mass Effect 1 is, I'm willing to make the hard calls and make the necessary sacrifices to do what's good in the end. And then 2 and 3 are various flavors of total BioWare psycho, right? And so when you get to the point of 3, I'm like, what is the implication for Control? Is this a character that's just like, this is what's best, and I, with a heavy heart, make the hard decision? Or is, I want to be techno god and fucking genocide whoever I want? Like, there's no way to feel it.
And I think that that's a reflection of the fact that in 1, your range of activity is naive, good cop trying to do the right space thing, or evil, shitty, bad space cop being racist, right? And but that's as far as it goes. And then from 2 onwards, it's like, oh, but you might actually be completely outside the system, and you might actually be you will be responsible for the deaths of tons of innocents as you roll through the galaxy, you know. But hey, winter's coming. We got bigger fish to fry. So that fact that the game's entire final choices that they try to push as like, your choices matter, or this is what it is, so here you are just the villains that you have handily struggled and argued with and fought against the entire time, and then you ultimately have to concede to that, is cynical. And it feels fucking dry, and like, again, there's no hope to be found in that. And I don't think that hope needs to be the final triumphant force in the universe. But the idea of this story concluding in a way where it's completely absent doesn't sit well with me. So go ahead, and then I can,
Those 2 endings are viciously cynical, and Destroy is left to you as the, you know, optimal choice, the most moral choice, because you don't have to worry about control, you don't have to worry about bodily autonomy, and the Reapers will be gone. But then it runs into the fact that Mass Effect 1 and 2 and 3 had very confused themes. The original theme of Mass Effect, it's number 1's primary theme, and it's the theme of the first book that the writer of Mass Effect wrote, is AI of value as a living thing? But that kind of got muddled and kind of dissipated in importance. But then they rocket it back up in 3. You deal with Edie and her self-actualization over a very long period, over 2 games. You deal with the Geth's self-actualization and their right to autonomy in the world. And the person who's trying to do is like, I'm trying to create a better future, I'm trying to create a hopeful outcome, is left with the decision, by the way, the largest non-Reaper effect you have had on the galaxy is going to be genocided by you hitting this button, because that's just the way it goes. It's very important to note that I've described the story of Matt Walters and Casey Hudson disappearing into a room for 3 days to write the Mass Effect 3 ending with no oversight from anyone. Rannoch, everything to do with Rannoch and the Geth and the Quarians and that ending was done and being made before this ending was even written. There was no communication.
And if I understand correctly as well, this is already after the fact that Drew Karpashian was off the project.
He's gone
by that point entirely, right? So,
Rannoch is written unaware that there is going to be a genocide the Geth button later in the game.
And so this kind of is another bit. So like before I even get to like what I think the fix kind of what could have been, it's like the part where you look back at what 1 was and what 2 was, and then 3. It feels as if like some of the best stories that we fucking love that are airtight are the ones where you can see how well put together everything was from the jump, and everything that was set up back here echoes again in the future, and doesn't just echo but like actually has application. It feels like a deliberate thing. It doesn't feel like you just wrote it as you went along, right? Writing yourself into a corner and then finding a way out of it sometimes works depending on your style, but in the case like this, where it's this game that you're just building on top of a framework and, you know, trying to figure out what the themes are as you go. We know that AI versus humans are the overall thing, but a lot of it feels like an incoherent way to get to this finale. It feels like you just had to like patchwork this conclusion into being, you know. It was pointed out to me after the fact that like the whole thing where Edie is the moon AI at the end of the day that you faced. There was a line when she first shows up and you go, oh, I don't trust that, especially after what happened back then. And they're like, oh, we assure you she's nothing like the moon base. Don't worry about it. Right? Like there's stuff where they just clearly had to swerve it around at the last second by grabbing anything they can find as a through line and making it relevant here. But it wasn't necessarily planned that way. And so you can feel that, right? But there's no accounting for the fact that business and time and writers and all that shit will have an effect on the quality of a game and so on with crunch and yada yada and all that bullshit. So when I kind of was like, all right, I don't like I don't like how this went, but I also don't know how you fix it because it's so complicated. I kind of came up with something that I'm like, here's what would have satisfied me given how complicated this whole fucking thing was. And my preface that I put out there is that like I'm not a writer. I don't know how to, you know, coherently smash these ideas together in the best way. But to start out with this as a framework, I was thinking that if you basically said fuck the idea of this pick your ending bullshit, you end up with with destroy. This is going to happen, right? You've been on a mission to destroy the Reapers from day one. So we're going to hit that point, and that's your goal ultimately. Now, when you kind of take that and focus on the part where I was mentioning what I found the most interesting is like the dilemma of how you think about organic life. That can be a reflection of your choices that you've made along the way, what kind of player you've been and what kind of example you've set. Because when you decide, okay, this is the way it has to go down, we have to sacrifice all synthetic life. It would be so fucking interesting to hear from Edie and from the Geth and like what they think about this type of proposition.
So I'm going to dive back into development of Mass Effect 3's ending right now. So we haven't talked about something, which is the ending pre-patch, right?
Oh, yeah. I heard about that.
Of importance here. So it's of importance now that you bring it up because you're like, I would like to talk to Edie about the possibility of her dying for the greater good. Or Legion, the possibility of genociding his entire fucking race in order to solve this problem. Well, let's roll it back just a little bit. Every follow-up question you could have possibly had to Starchild is new. Is not present in the original release, which led to and extra scenes post credits are also there. So you get into the situation,
including
the
Legion, which was not Legion, sorry, including fucking DLC Leviathan question.
Yeah. so you get into a situation post release where you got to a situation where the kid explains the three outcomes, and you're like, if I hit this button, will it kill the Geth? But you don't get to even ask the question, so you don't even know. Like you're like maybe, and then the ending like slides don't even show you, and you don't even know.
You
like
just
let alone not knowing what your party fucking thinks of it. You don't even know the real outcomes of those fucking things
when they first dropped it. So you had even less context. That's fucking insane.
Yeah.
Well, now
my favorite thing about the red ending, the destroy ending, real quick, is especially in the context of 2023, is if you ask a player now, would you get rid of all AI, and you think about the consequences, you're only getting rid of ChatGPT,
Yeah.
huge tittied women with like 12 fingers,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mhm.
guess
Hard
people
choice.
who are writing like shitty NPC
And
like
Siri.
bots, whatever, and Siri. That's it. That's it. And
Yeah.
like Tesla cars. That's it.
Right. So,
So it's a really, really easy choice to make. Like today,
red. Yeah, no, but that's it. I think like by taking that choice and zooming in on the destroy ending and like let's now focus on the agony and the sacrifice and what synthetic life feels about this proposition so far, and that's where your choices and the rolling character you've played should come into play, right? And I think you could even
I
have
need to pull a quote for you.
Okay.
From Casey Hudson. This is a paraphrase. Don't worry, guys. Your choices are going to definitely affect the ending. We're not going to get into a situation where you get to the end of the game and you're given choices A, B, or C, and it doesn't reflect anything that you've done. This is a real quote from the Mass Effect 3 lead up. You can go find it right now. It's the funniest fucking thing in the world.
That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, there's always something like there's so many examples of like the last game contradicting the current thing. It's insane. But what are so I think what would be even interesting as well is like the idea that like maybe if you set an example of like that selflessness being installed into, like something that they picked up on, they would even go as far as to like you go, you know what? No. I'm not going to sacrifice you guys. And then they go, yeah, well, too bad. We already did it. Like, we're not going to let you even say no to that choice, and you could have a moment of like, fuck, the god damn it, the Geth are heroes here. Or you could have, or maybe they're like selfish because they're like, you've taught them, or they've picked up your example that like, no, self-survival is important. And, they never quite got around to building that Dyson sphere they wanted to, but, I don't know, whatever, like a million ways to play out the chaos of that. And then, like, you ultimately going, well, I'm going to press it anyway, or I don't. But that should have been where your choices mattered the most. And it would have been a great place as well, because, again, the whole AI versus organics thing, you have the ultimate unknowable, unsolvable. I keep saying that, and I know some people actually were like, actually, we want you to be able to shoot them and bring their HP down and have them be very defeatable. But I'm fine with the idea of, like, that's a lost cause if two of these things show up on your planet. But to counterpoint that with the idea of like, and here's the best example of synthetic life, and they're willing to make that sacrifice, or maybe they're not, you would have a fucking way more satisfying place to go with this whole thing. And what I was thinking of in the moment was I was like, you could even have the literal example of asking the ghosts of 1 trillion dead souls how they feel about their sacrifice. Because that's what's about to happen right now. That's what the synthetic life represents in that moment. That Javik comes right back around on it. So I feel like that would have been something.
I've got an assist from, of course, Dad Asana, who found the exact text of that quote, which was from 10/01/2012, so pretty much right before the game came out. Quote, at this point, we're taking into account so many decisions that you've made as a player and reflecting a lot of that stuff. It's not even in any way like the traditional game endings, where you can say how many endings there are or whether you got ending A, B, or C.
Mm-hmm.
So the ending was already written by the time this quote came out.
Yeah, and and then the other thing too that I really hated was like, okay, so you have another variable besides your personality, which is your war assets, right? How many chakwas, as we call them, have you managed to amount? Because
I have many
and you use that to verify, like, okay, so whatever you feel about your good or bad choices, how capable is the Citadel of pulling it off? The whole thing where you get up to the last second and they're like, we're not going to tell you what the Crucible is because it's clearly going to be a reveal of something that is big and you've known the whole time. I remember hitting a point where I'm like, at this point, we're so far past where you should have already implied or gotten to this or built up something that I don't care what your reveal is going to be. So when it turned out to be, it's the thing from, I'm like, yeah, okay, great. You know, you can't string that shit along and give you nothing on the MacGuffin at all. Like, don't even hint. Don't even acknowledge it. Just go, there's a MacGuffin. Stop asking about it, right? You can do that in a way that is like at least filler in an idea of what's going on, or at the very least, something that doesn't leave such an open amount of fucking hole for, is it a laser that's gonna fire out and, you know, target every Reaper? Is it like, just give me something, man, you know? And like, that felt so unsatisfying the entire time that it also deflated the tires by the time the Vancouver kid rolled around. So, you know, all of that kind of leads to just like, yeah, you get that final scene of the Star Child and whatever, Tiny Tim, whatever they call it, the future people.
Oh, have you looked at that scene really closely? That's just a human asset and a smaller human adult asset.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, if you look closely at it, it's like it's just a scaled down full adult.
Yeah, and it's just the little kid drilling for a coconut asking Shimon like, "Hey, who the hell are you?" And he's like, "I don't know. It doesn't matter." Like, whatever. It's, you know. But that is like, that is so, it feels like that was the attempt to make things feel not cynical at the end of the fucking credits or whatever, but it just completely fails, because you're like, well, life still continues to exist, and I guess the cycle was there or not, depending on what kind of Shepard, but it all meant what, you know? So there was a little attempt at a hopeful seed placed there, and maybe a, hey, check it out, it's the comms of Liara going, if you're in the future, we're all dead, but maybe you can fix the problem. It's like, all right, whatever. Like, I just, yeah, that's overall the takeaway digested, you know?
So I want to bring up something that is from the original cut to the extended cut, which is not about let's make the ending better. It is actually in regards to whoever wrote the extended cut, looking at it and going, for the reality of the IP, we have made massive mistakes in the original game's ending. So the first thing to point out, and I went and checked and watched them while you were talking, in the original ending cut of all three endings, every mass relay is blown to pieces. All of them. They are annihilated. So immediately, number one, when they wrote that, they forgot that mass relays exploding destroy the entire solar system.
Right. So the
original cut of the ending has every planet you have ever seen vaporized. That's a mistake.
Oh my god!
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That is a mistake. Second of all, there's the cut where they're trying to outrun the explosion, you know, in the ship, and then they crash land on the planet, and they get out of the Normandy, and they're like, "Oh, we're on a planet. Oh, weird." And all the party members that would be there are there, right? Well, if all the mass relays are blown up, and the crew of the Normandy is stranded on a desert island, presumably for the rest of your lives, it is a coin flip as to which ones will survive, because people on your ship are biologically incompatible with each other's food. So did you land on a planet that humans can eat the food? Tally and Garrus are fucking dead. Did you land on a planet in which Garrus and Tally can eat the food? No human crew member will survive past a couple of weeks.
That moment was clearly not meant to be like put under the microscope. That was a moment of just
that moment. The mass relays are gone, and that's the ending shot before the future child.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, all logistics are gone. Like every the supply chain. You know, like you can't get PlayStation 30s anymore. You know?
I mean, so it was. You know, there was a thing about how how precise space battles had to be in the first and second games, and talking about the codex of every bullet you fire, you know, must know where it's going. Otherwise, that goes through space and fucking causes collateral damage and on a scale you've never imagined. And then when you're fighting above the Earth, it's just nukes in all directions, you know? Yeah, and like there's like that precision idea of knife fight distance just goes right out the window, you know? There's a million things that are just not meant to be thought about for more than 1 second
It
here.
reads like an ending that was written with no feedback. Because that's what it is. It
Because
was
that's,
an
I guess,
ending
what
that
it
was
was.
brainstormed by two guys and was never given out to anyone to go, hey, is there any problems with this? Because like the other people, the other leads on the team would have gone, hey, well, are Tally and Garrus gonna fucking starve to death on this new planet? That's
Yeah, and to some degree, it's like, shut up. It doesn't matter about the individuals. We're gonna lose some. That's not the point. Move on. You know?
But that's the biggest problem. The reason why I harp on that specific example so much is by the end of Mass Effect, all the problems I have with the ending's original state is, you know what? The wider galaxy is important. I want you to tell me which of my party members will die as a result of these decisions, because the characters are the ones I actually give a shit about.
Right. You know, so it just, it comes together in that fucking way, you know? And I guess looking back to where you see, like, when you get to see it side by side, especially, like, oh my god, the fact that it's really just a Photoshop filter on the green, and they add the same shots, but they add a little bit of green glow and cyberized texture, and you're like, oh
really funny.
no.
This also came out at an interesting time when, especially BioWare games, they felt like they had to give you multiple endings. You know, like they're like, well, Chrono Trigger, like the Chrono Trigger did it in like '96 or whatever, so why can't we do it in 2012? And it's also interesting that like multiple endings aren't really a thing that much anymore these days. You know, like you don't get to choose what you do at the end of Last of Us Part 2. They just like they just tell you, you know.
Yeah.
So I think,
That's what makes I know nobody play Forspoken, but like Forspoken actually gives you a fucking choice at the end of the game, and it's jarring. It's just like, first of all, you never gave me a choice in the rest of the game, and
Oh,
then now
really?
you
It's
just give
no
me,
choices the whole way
there's
through?
no choices in the whole game. They just give you a choice at the end for some reason. I'm just like, well, like how did this game from like 2012, like this ending, teleport into this game? I don't understand.
I think there's something important to note about the Chrono Trigger thing and how, I mean, we all love that, is that Chrono Trigger has an ending and then several New Game Plus endings.
It has a bunch of goofy what ifs.
And that's very different from walking into a room and going, which one? You know, pick a color. You beat the game, and then you get extras that are going out into different places.
It's really wild because Mass Effect was built and like thrived on, man, you can choose anything. But when I got to the end of the series finally, I was overwhelmed with this thing of like, yeah, this should have been the Paragon storyline the whole way through, and instead of making alternate versions of events, they should have just made slightly more of those events and just had you be a fucking good guy. Because like the amount of times that I was like, wow, that's a cool choice I made. That there are a couple of those, and those were always kneecapped by later events going, guess what, dumbass, the Rachni Queen is back. It doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. And what I was actually like and following through on like being a character that is like, you know, spurred on by your convictions, whichever they are, whatever they may be, or even spurred on by your lack of conviction. You can have moments where you take something like the proposition of the Control ending and the synthesis ending, which are like these fucked up concessions that, you know, that venerate the villains you've defeated, and have those be those endings could be the best version of the argument those characters want to make, right? Mm-hmm. Like the blue ending should be Tim talking to you about that, and you going, I see, and that's where your peace comes from, but here's why that's fucked up, right? And if there was a way to you know, confront the Sauron aspect of the green ending, that can be a proposition of, look, no bodies, peace, the least amount of destruction. Is this not a desirable outcome? And then you can go, but here's what's fucked up about that, you know? And let show those examples as like the best possible argument, but then you can Mass Effect converse your way down from it, you know? It would really
that would give the illusion that they actually gave a shit from Mass Effect 1. If you somehow gave a callback to Saren, if Tim was there talking through it and it's like, oh yeah, it all built up to this, even though they clearly just improvised it and just like stumbled upon it, but at least they could have pretended
Yes.
and gave us the illusion, and we'd be like, oh, okay, now we have some agency, and I feel like I actually had agency throughout the story, as opposed to this weird Deus Ex, this literal Deus Ex ending, you know?
That's it. And then whatever choices like you make that like escape your control, you know you know that your intentions at the very least were, again, not so hopeless, you know? Yeah, man. So anyway, we got a lot to fucking move into, but that's that.
Well, luckily enough, Woolie,
and
all of this discussion about the ending gets even funnier if you pick Destroy and your war readiness is at the absolute maximum. Because only in that circumstance do you get a single shot of the N7 armor taking a breath from under the rubble, mandating that ending as the real ending.
It's the canon ending.
Oh
which,
boy,
if you're gonna
Mass
do
Effect
that,
4.
then what the fuck was the whole point of all this shit?
Liara dusted off she picked up, and we looked at the Mass Effect 4. Here it is. Look, yeah. I mean, God, I don't even know how you make it coherent at this point, and I don't even think like jumping far away from everything known for the setup for Andromeda is like not even it's the right choice, but just make it interesting.
Fucked it.
Just make it an interesting jump, you know? But like here we are now, direct continuity instead, right? Yeah.
It's like this overwhelming feeling of at some point they're like, oh shit, we made it so we can't make any more Mass Effect games. Fuck.
Side note. No, earlier when I was talking Gurren, side note, if you're a Shimon pronouncer or a Simon pronouncer, you've been fighting for years, fight each other, and whoever survives is going to be correct. And in the meantime, we'll just use both interchangeably.
Yeah, okay,
it
I
doesn't
can do
matter.
that.
Great. Yeah, so I don't have any desire to see Andromeda necessarily.
You're good. You're good. I can
damning,
tell you right now.
You're okay.
The most damning thing being that people going like, it's not even that it's like hilariously bad. It's just like mid to nothing.
It's a season 1.5 Star Trek episode,
and that's a woof 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 arf bark. So yeah, here's the end of the trilogy, you know? Here lies red, here lies blue, and at the end of the day, the truth was green. Green was the truth.
If Mass Effect 4 has Shepard back as the playable character, that would be the most cowardly, fucking embarrassing thing in the world. Oh my god. It'd be so awful.
I think they already hinted at that in that I think that one teaser trailer where it's like Liara like looking into the distance, like, "Oh, my love is still out there," or whatever, you know?
Yeah. She gets up and she dusts off the thing, and she picks up a Shepard helmet.
She literally dusts off. It's like, "Oh, here's the Mass Effect 4."
She picks up a Shepard helmet, and it's like it's Liara, and she could be 1,000 at that point for all we know, but it still is that. So, yeah. Anyway,
I mean, you can just reconstruct Shepard because that's what Shepard was.
Yeah, you can do it a bunch of times.
Who's to stop us? Hit the button again. Boop.